Recently, I was recommended this YouTube video that had great potential. It was called The Controversial History of Daisy. I've thought of this for a long time, that this video idea would be good because Daisy in the model series was mishandled for sure. But I watched all 3 minutes video, and I kinda felt disappointed. And I feel that the Docta, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name here, completely misunderstood the problems with Daisy. Just to clarify, this is just some constructive criticism and also me commenting with my own opinions and views on Daisy. This is not a video to go send hate, and I hope you all understand that. Now, the first part of this video is fine enough. There's a joke that didn't quite fit my humor, and the Doctor gave us some information about their own history with the character. That's awesome, nice job. The first thing I felt was off in this video was this.
Daisy has been deemed offensive to the female gender, a type of caricature that was outdated even by the late 80s. Why? When Thomas the Tank Engine was brought over to America through another show called Shining Time Station, a producer of the show, Rick Sigelcow, took a disliking to the character because of the excessive makeup she wears, and that was all too much for Shining Time Station. So her absence would cause no harm to the American audience.
I do think Daisy being removed in America, when you hear it at first, is a little odd, but I kinda completely understand why. Something you bring up later in the video is that Daisy's theme is inspired by The Stripper by David Rose. An interesting fact is that in the model series, David Min's design for Daisy was supposed to have her with pink buffers. I don't think it matters if Daisy was the first or last female character introduced in the show, but having a female character, especially in a kids show, being based off a stripper is just sending the wrong message. It's basically just saying women are inherently sexualized. Look, girls, your first rep is sexualized! Like, doesn't that sound bad to you? Now, just to clarify, I really do like Daisy in the model series, but I can be content watching these episodes while acknowledging Daisy shouldn't have been handled this way in the model series, especially when it wasn't like this in the books. And then in the video, you go on to fully blame Rick Sigelcow, and I don't think that is fair. He was just doing his job at the end of the day. He saw that Daisy would be too controversial in America, and it wasn't for any stupid reason like he didn't want any female characters. It was just because Daisy was basically a stripper. And I don't know this for sure, but I think the excessive makeup was probably just the icing on the cake for him.
What a bunch of hippy, dippy baloney. I'm not saying that wrong, it's the Americans who can't talk properly.
Yeah, make fun of him based on where he lives. That's super constructive and not rude. Look, I do wish we had Daisy in Season 3 though. I love her character, and Rick is the reason she didn't appear in Season 3, and I think it's fair to be upset about that, but I do think he went overboard with his point about Rick, and this is not the last time you bring up Rick.
In 1994, Shining Time Station was cancelled, and Mr. Sigelcow was out of the picture. The Thomas crew could have respected Sigelcow's criticisms of Daisy, essentially warning them she would not be well received by female fans or mothers viewing the show to their children. Instead, they adapted Chapter 3 from Branchline Engines that was not featured in Season 2, finally completing Daisy's story from the books. That same year, another Metro Camel unit was given the same name after the Rowie series character herself. R.I.P.
The Doctor, I really think you're taking this joke way too far. It's not even funny, it's just mean-spirited.
What I see here is a case similar to what happened with Gina Carano.
Surely you're not.
For those that don't know, Gina was a rising star appearing in movies such as Fast and Furious 6, Deadpool, and Terror on the Prairie. Gina Carano was fired from Lucasfilm for allegedly posting anti-Semitic tweets explaining, "Denigrating people based on their culture and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable." In great irony, the Jewish community did not find those tweets offensive. In fact, they appeared to side with Gina. It's a modern case of someone being offended for someone else, pretending to be upset for an imaginative audience and lessening the integrity of actual offenses. These types of people need to mind their own beeswax and address real problems the real audience has a real issue with.
I want to clarify and say I'm not Jewish, so I'll not pretend that I know how Jewish people feel about this topic. But I don't think Ben Shapiro speaks for every Jewish person or is a good representation for Jewish people. I also think this is not being that truthful, and I feel you're altering your narrative here. This might have not been your intention, but I don't think you should be saying all Jewish people feel this way, because that's simply not the case. I want to move on from this topic and let those of you who are Jewish tell me how you feel about it.
Suspiciously, her male co-worker got to keep his job despite posting relatively similar tweets that Gina was sharing. Perhaps they should have been more inclusive.
Okay, let's look at this headline here. Lucasfilm boss says women in Star Wars struggle with toxicity due to male-dominated fanbase. Again, this might not be your attention, but I think that this is just undermining the women who actually do struggle with this. It's a big problem in the Thomas fandom. I know cis females struggle with people being sexist here. I myself have struggled ever since I came out as female here. So I see the point you're trying to make in like why this female was fired, but not the male for the same thing. That is weird, but this image here just makes you look really bad.
It turns out engineers and fitters are not the same type of people. They undergo different training and study different topics. In layman's language, an engineer is a tradesman and a fitter is a designer. Similar, but not the same. Remember in my last Thomas topic I made fun of the English language, how it's in a state of poverty? This is one of many reasons why I did that. How can someone find the meaning of life if they can't define life?
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I mean please correct me if I'm wrong here, but isn't this just being anti-abortion? The rest of this video covers Daisy after the classic series, including a nice implied character arc with Daisy and Toby and how they got over it and became friends. Nice observation here, and good job crediting where you got it from. In all honesty, the rest of your video isn't that bad. It suffers from your misunderstanding of the model era. When you bring up the Bechdel test, I hope I'm saying that right, that test is basically just to make sure characters aren't sexist. This could have been a good moment to acknowledge how Davey Moore made Daisy as a character pass it, but instead you bring it up as if it was never the case in the first place.
The reason Daisy works so well in CGI is she isn't replacing anyone.
You know, I'm not one to judge, but are you high? You later bring up how Rick did do a lot for the show, and he had just misjudged Daisy. But then you tell him to read the room. What? Are you trying to be on his side or not? Like, you can't just be like, I completely understand, but next time do better. Like, what are you talking about? You already criticized him. I can semi-understand what you're getting at here, but did you forget what his job was? He was a producer. This kind of stuff is kinda their job. This type of hatred towards a single man who worked on Thomas the Tank Engine is so uncalled for and not okay when it comes to a single TV show. You are allowed to criticize their decisions, but this is just too much on one person here. Let's stop that.
Kids shows used to be so lewd, but somehow better.
Oh, and don't think I forgot to read the description of your video, where you basically say that DEI hiring, to clarify that is diversity, equality, and inclusion, is bad. And this is the guy that people are saying made a good video. Look, I can tell you that you're being stupid, but I'd prefer not to do it in a video about Thomas and Friends. I feel that you're just being really dumb with these decisions, and that this is so uncalled for a video about Thomas and Friends. You don't see most Thomas YouTubers going, hey, dar man fam, diversity is the big poopy, but you know what isn't? My YouTube channel. You aren't the first person to make a mistake when it comes to analyzing female Thomas characters though. Like, let's look at Thomas Thayer's video on Rosie. How he compares Rosie getting repainted to Red. He's like how pink is associated with being a little girl, and Red is
much more associated with lust and adult femininity.
Like, after this point he makes in the video, the rest of it is just made worse due to this horrible misunderstanding. I think it's totally fine to have mistakes or to have a bad video. I've had plenty of bad videos, so I hope that this criticism ends up helping you here. But you need to know that this sort of talk is not really that appropriate for Thomas and Friends content. You're allowed to make whatever you want, but this is really weird and so uncalled for. If everyone wants to know how I feel about Daisy, just to clear things up here, I think throughout the franchise, I really love her in the books. The model series episodes, if I ignore what they did with her design and theme-wise, I can really enjoy those episodes. And the CGI series is where she was absolutely peak. Daisy in the model series suffers from being, even for the time, an outdated representation of female people in a kids show. And let's focus on the kids show element here. We can totally have fictional characters who are strippers, and that's really cool, but let's not introduce themes like that into shows for everyone, but also for little kids. I hope that this video can help Docta understand the side who doesn't like Daisy in the model series. You asked how women felt about Daisy at the end of your video, and while I'm just 17, these are my thoughts. And a review as a bonus. This video was thrown together rather quickly, so sorry if it's like poorly polished. And I know I called the Doctor out for stuff in this video I don't like or agree with and was, frankly, a little bit rude, but I do hope that my constructive criticism will actually be helpful. Remember everyone, it's okay to criticize someone's work, that includes my own, but it's not cool to go spread hate. So, if you want something to do after this video, go watch the new Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur episode that got leaked. It's amazing and pro-trans, we love to see it.